Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode. I am Michael Petrow, and joining me on the show this week, you've got an interview with local Winnipeg Props Master Aaron Johnston, who's also cousins with Olivia Rain from the CC and Ollie show. I did not mean to bring family on the show, but I love it that it works out that way. So thanks, Olivia, for letting me know. That being said, Aaron comes on to talk about how he got his start in film, being from a family of filmmakers. His father is a local filmmaker, Aaron Kim Johnston. As well, working in Canada, working here in the province, the work that he's done. He's recently done The Porter, which is airing on CBC, which is what the first black union on the railways in Canada, which actually had a lot to do with it being in Manitoba. It was shot in Winnipeg, if you didn't know that. So, yeah, and a bunch of other stuff, working on Ice Road, working on Tales from the Loop, all the cool sci-fi stuff that was done in that show. I bug him about how they make shit. Great time. Thank you again, Aaron, for coming on. Much appreciated here. You make us look good. So that's who's on the show. That's what's on the show. Items of note, May 14th at the Handsome Daughter, 8 p.m. We are doing a live recording. We will be mass debating for your listening pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to argue which movie or series should have its own themed restaurant. An example would be possibly what I'm going to do, which is a Godfather Italian-themed restaurant called Corleone's. And that's all I'm going to leave you with, because if I tell you everything, you won't come to the show. We're going to have prizes. We're going to be doing trivia. We're going to be interacting with you guys. You can talk on the show if you want. We'll have a microphone floating around in some fashion at some point. $10. All proceeds go back into supporting this madness here that you guys listen to. So we hope to see you there. If you're from Winnipeg and the surrounding area, if you're Selkirk, Lockport, you're just on the outskirts of town. I think that was the last snow dump we're ever going to have for this year. Not ever, but for this year, I think. So come on in, May 14th, 8 p.m. Doors open at 7, $10 at the door. If you want to ask more questions about it and how it all works, send us an email at thereeldebaters@gmail.com or at us at Twitter or Instagram, DM us, Facebook too, we're everywhere. Yeah, that's it. That's who's on the show. That's what's going on. Oh, if you want to leave us a voicemail, you can do that now. The link in our bio and Twitter on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You just go right to that, smash that leave a voicemail button, and it'll pick up the smartphone that's in your hand. It will figure out the microphone, and it will let you record directly in and let us know what you think of the show if you have an idea. As well, there's a rate the show or leave us a review option there as well too, and a survey if you want to let us know how you came across us. We want to know who you guys are. We want to make a better show for you. So that's how you can tell us your feelings on said ramblings here at the Reel Debaters. Anyways, I have nothing else for you guys. Aaron Johnston. I should let you know. There was a glitch, so we missed like the intro portion of the show. So you jump right into a conversation. So I apologize about that. I try to pull everybody in as quick as I can, but there was a little bit of a glitch, so we missed some stuff. So sorry about that, everybody. That's on me. So without further ado, I give you Aaron Johnston, Winnipeg property master, Olivia Rain's cousin. I will shut the fuck up, cue that reel, and you enjoy the show.
Let's tidy up this tangle of film by putting it on a reel. Here is a motion picture film, 1,000 feet, 16,000 separate photographs.
Welcome, everyone, to the official space section of the charter.
What's the truth? You can't handle the truth.
Sir, you're out of order.
Out of order. I show you out of order.
Everyone's like down underneath inside like a silo. I obviously I can't remember this name of this film, and I can't remember anything about it, honestly. Okay. But I do remember showing up and having no idea what to do, no idea. And this is I had experience from being on film as a kid and all that stuff, but I think I had just enough experience to also be very aware of how precious time was, and I knew about people's ego. I was just kind of expecting the worst.
Yeah.
Anyway, it ended up being a pretty fun day, but it was my only day in grips. But I saw the props guy working that day, and they were like right up there with the actors. I do remember one specific thing as a grip that day, though, was because when you're a grip, you're setting up these humongous flags, right? Either you're bouncing the light or you're shading the set with a big flag from the sun, or what, all these different things you're doing. And it takes especially if there's a visual effect or something going on, it takes a lot, you really need a lot of people to be moving these huge 20 by 20 by frames of fabric through outside, and I remember seeing, I'm just like a grunt, and I can see in the distance, like the visual effects coordinator, like the visual effects supervisor, who's a friend of mine now, Darren Wall, and like the director and the camera operator, like talking in the distance. And they would talk, and the first AD, whoever it was, and talking in the distance, and they're making little decisions. And then all of a sudden, I'd get on the radio, on my radio in my ear, all of a sudden be like, blah, 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 all these orders and stuff. And everyone gets up and runs around and moves some shit over. And then we were like, like moving sandbags, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then you'd see the group of guys over there in the distance, like talk, make another decision. Something didn't work. And all of a sudden it's like, blah, 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 orders in your ear, you're moving stuff again. And I just realized, I was like, oh, like it may seem like these guys are like the grip guys or whatever, like people, it may seem like there's an abundance of crew on set, but there's people who have jobs that are like specific about making decisions and figuring out where things need to be in order to get the shot in that little piece of glass, like we were talking about.
Yeah.
But there's all these humongous heavy things that have to be moved around. And like, if there wasn't like 10 guys sitting around waiting for that call,
yeah,
you'd never get the shot, So it dawned on me then at that moment. I was like, oh, like this group of people that for otherwise are just sitting here, with no interest in what's going on. Like no one's read the script.
They're not married to anything. They're just waiting to work.
Yeah. Like all they do every day is make these frames, move them around, and do like tie these knots and organize all this equipment.
Yeah.
But like it's all this equipment that has to be moved around in order to make the film. And it just really kind of dawned on me at that moment, like, oh yeah, like these people have to be here in order to like move this stuff around, so that these people all they have to do is just make the decision and look through the viewfinder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like a good experience for me, at least. I've always remembered that, to be like, okay, everyone here is really important, even if this is just like every other show or every other movie they've worked on. In fact, in terms of, they don't have to deal with the story or the actors or the any sort of creative element of it. They're like, this is like nuts and bolts filmmaking things that you need to have, is people to move the stuff.
Yeah, you're right, nuts and bolts. Perfect explanation.
Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I did that. Anyway, that was obviously a big day for me because it was my first day on film.
Yeah, it was a lot of self-realization that happened that day.
Yeah, exactly. I also realized that I wanted to be nearer to the people making the decisions.
Well, and that, like you said, it takes a village, but there is, it's just, what kind of person are you? Are you a workhorse, or are you a creative, right? Like, is it
right,
everything in its place and has its place, but at the same time, yeah, like I look at, I man a desk. I don't usually move from it. I'm not the guy building the boom back together, so I know my lane. But
right,
at the same time, like that's where the collaboration of ideas is taking place, and then lightning in a bottle happens, and then all of it gets assembled because that call goes through.
Exactly.
That clip you heard earlier was just a backup recording kicking in, but because I forgot to hit it, but it clicked in when you were telling me the name of this movie, and I missed that. What was this film?
Oh God!
You said it was like an alien movie. It's okay if you don't remember it. Like,
I don't remember. I think it was. What was it? It was I've never seen it, and I don't know what the name of it was. I think it was a larger film. Like, I don't remember the name of it. I'm sorry.
That's totally fine. No, I
think everyone gets stuck in like a bomb shelter underneath the New York City and then starts eating each other or something like that.
Oh yeah, we've never seen that movie before. Like,
yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
seen that. I've seen 12 of those like last year.
Yeah,
found
exactly.
them all on Tubi. It was great.
Yeah.
Okay, so like, yeah.
But the production designer, I can't remember the name, but the production designer was also the same production designer for Moon, with Sam Rockwell.
Oh, with Birdie, Birdie the robot.
The set was like beautiful. I was there on the last day. I think it was the last day of shooting, and this set they built at the studio was like, it was like, this huge network of tunnels, and beautiful looking, but it had been through an entire like movie's worth of story where everyone kills each other and eats each other. So the entire place, I went and walked through it, and it was like the whole thing like was a hot set essentially, like, but it was just covered in blood. Like the entire set was sprays of like blood everywhere, and I was like, oh man, like I gotta see this movie.
This is
which I never
visceral. Which you never did. Yeah, I helped make it. I'm going to watch this shit. Okay, so let me just recap here. So we've got Born In. Aaron Kim Johnston is your father, so you get this great exposure. You have your first day on set on the Unknown Alien movie, and you have the self-realization that you're like, yeah, okay, let's start doing this. So when does Props start? When do you get your hands kind of going? Because I wanna chew your
yeah. We want to get to that. You want to get to that part, of course. I think I very like pretty much after that experience, I already was like, I think I had asked my dad or something. I was like, I want to see how things work on set so that I know what all the different departments do.
Yeah.
I wanna, like,
that's lucky because you get to you want to make the best educated decision.
Yeah, I want to see like what do all the different departments do, and I want to like know what they're doing so that I can, decide what I'd like to do maybe. And I think he was kind of like, you should do set deck or props department kind of stuff. Like I think he could just tell that I was kind of in my interest range, and it's true because it's fully been in my interest range. Like even before getting into film, I was like really I really, really enjoyed like going to antique stores, and I like things. Like I like looking at old things and just like, oh yeah, like I wish I had a use for that, or
I know, dude, I get it. Like, really, I love tchotchkes. I love antiques. Yeah. I love memorabilia. But
I'm not
you're not a what?
I'm not a collector though.
Okay. I'll do that for both of us.
I don't collect things. Like I don't like to go, I'll go to this. I like to go to antique stores and look at all of the things and just be like, oh yeah, that's a beautiful thing. But then I won't buy it, like I'll just be like, but I can't buy that. Like, cause I don't want to get started,
You just named the episode, Aaron. This episode's going to be called That's a Beautiful Thing.
Very good. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of so I just like that other thing. Just like that other show, that unnamed show, the alien show. I got a call randomly, and it was like, need someone to come and do, I think it was like set dressing. So I got into a set dressing thing. I think it was on Goon. So I got like a week or two doing set dressing on Goon.
So like the apartment that they're staying in with
all that stuff.
La Flemme, Xavier La Flemme.
That's right.
I love that movie, man. I absolutely love that movie.
It's an excellent movie. That's a fantastic movie.
I was working at where was I working? I was working at Bucacino's at the time. And Jay and Emily came in for dinner. And
cool.
I had like I was like, dude, you're yeah. Hey, how's it going? And I was like Emily, you were in Scott Pilgrim. Like, I don't care about Jay right now. You were in Scott Pilgrim. Let's talk about that. So it's like, It's pretty fucking neat. But long and the short of it was that movie was when I think I started to pay attention to Winnipeg film.
Oh yeah.
And I like really started to notice like, oh, what are these trucks and all these things doing here? Anyways, I'm tangenting. So
fair enough.
I'm just having a moment. I'm just having some nostalgia there. So you're on Goon, you're doing set dressing. Back to you.
So yeah, I was on Goon doing set dressing, and this is kind of like the classic story as far as how you get into film as you get like more and more work. Is I did that. I was working with a guy, like a truck partner, and the 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 guy who was my truck partner, Greg, was like also kind of like a part-time film guy, and just sort of we were like, in set dressing worlds, there's like often like 3 or 4 trucks, and they're like kind of usually rated. Like it's like there's number 1 truck, and then there's like 2 truck, 3 truck, 4 truck. We were like 4th truck, just like we were like just extras that they just hired for the week or two, like to just like deal with crap way in the background. Like clean up sets that they forgot to clean something up, 2 weeks ago, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So really like not really involved with the filmmaking at all. Just like barely, basically getting paid though, which is great. So, getting to drive around and get some work and make relationships. So that's the main thing in the film world, is like you're building relationships, because at the end of the day, it's all contract work, and every new movie is like a shuffle of the deck of who's going to get hired and who's hiring who.
Well, that's why they shoot behind the scenes, because sometimes behind the scenes is just as good as the movie they're making.
Right. Exactly. It's just like, exactly. Right. So, this Greg guy, after this movie went by, I guess he hired me. Like, this is there's like many months between these shows, like I'm working at like the Black Sheep Diner. I'm working at, Earl's, maybe. I don't even know where I like, just like random other jobs.
Yeah, you're filling time.
In. Yeah. This is not a sure thing, like filmmaking is not a sure thing there yet. But it took a lot longer then, because there just wasn't as many films going on. So it took a long time to like get your days and get your, build your relationships. Anyway, maybe 3 or 4 months later, maybe a year later, he calls me and he's doing this Beethoven Saves Christmas movie.
Yes, he is.
As the Greens guy. And he needs a guy, and he remembers me from working with him in the truck for 2 weeks, like a year ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. And so I said, yeah, absolutely. Let's do this. And so I'm working with him, and he had threw his back out in the first week. And then, so like, I was kind of running the department with his dad. Like he had like a weird crew. This is like before there was like a legit greens crew in Winnipeg. And a greens crew, I don't know if you're aware of what that is.
No, tell the listener. This is, I know what it is, but I don't think it's public knowledge to everybody.
I mean, most people understand what a greens crew is, but just for the listener who may not, a greens crew is like an environmental crew. So it's like they work with the environment, natural environment, as a set. So like flowers or grass, snow, leaves, anything like trees, anything that is like a living organism that's part of the natural world. And it's not like a fridge or a box, like some sort of like manufactured item. Yeah. They deal with those things, a pulse. So yeah, anything that has like it should be living technically in the real world, they would deal with that.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, for instance, like if there's like if there's a set, we're building a set interior that's like, it's like in a studio, and we're building the interior of a set, and we have like a tree outside a window. They've cut down the tree and find the tree that looks just like the tree that it matches the exterior shot of the house. So like there's a tree outside the window in the exterior. They'll find something that matches, for the that goes inside the studio. So I mean, there's like, that's what a greens crew does.
That's cool. I didn't know. I thought it was more of I learned something. I thought it was more of just like environmental impact, like how they're like, whatever you're coming into, they're making sure it A, matches, but B, is just like, like golfing, like put your divot back.
No, so
No.
that is not what they do. That is not what they do. They're 100% like it depends on the greens guy. But I would say 100% is it's the environmental, it's like grass, snow, trees, bushes, dirt, whatever it is. Um, it's what their work is doing is for the frame of the camera. It's not for the land that we're working on. It's not, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's
I
that's
do.
not what they're doing. And then once everything leaves, they will then probably have, some contractual obligation to like fix stuff.
Yeah.
But that's something they're dealing with contractually. But their main job is performing the services of making it look right, making the snow look perfect, or making the grass or making the field look good, or making the vegetable garden. Say there's a scene with a vegetable garden. They're farming for like months beforehand to get all the vegetables into the right, positions or whatever, the right growth, all that stuff, so that they can plant it and have it be the right level of harvest or whatever.
Yeah, because people
that's a
like my
green's job.
father-in-law will sit there and they'll be like, the way the world is like right now, that's not
Yeah.
harvest. And, someone will know. And then like,
Right.
game over. Okay. And this kind of leads me into like my next thing. Cause people don't, I shouldn't broadly stroke like that. We masturbate here. We don't do that to the public, but that's our joke. This brings me into the idea of what not everybody knows props is responsible for. So by definition, what are you responsible for in a scene?
So by definition, it's pretty broad, but by definition, it's like anything that is like a scripted item that will have to be interacted with by either the actor or by extreme scrutiny by the camera. Like anything that's going to be featured very heavily on set, or just the scripted item. So that is going to be interacted with, or anything that's not scripted that the actor may deal with, like an environmental prop. So in that, environmental props is kind of like the way I term that is like if they're in a restaurant and it's not scripted that anyone's eating, but there's going to be food around and plates and people with serving dishes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All of that stuff is environmental. So it's just part of it's part of the location. So you're creating the reality of a location. So in a restaurant, there's all sorts of food around. In a bowling alley, everyone's bowling and probably food and beer,
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So those are environmental props. And then there's the envelope of money that the guy passes to the other guy. That's that's a scripted prop. So those are the varying degrees. And then there's all the character props, right? So their rings, their watches, their eyeglasses, their
hammers, their shields, their
hammers, their shield. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you're getting into the more fantasy stuff, exactly.
So you get a gig and you read the script, and what's your process? Like, how do you start to prop? Do you work with the character props first? Do you do like when you're reading, like where is your brain going? Like how are you starting to create what you're supposed to be making?
So, I mean, it's an ongoing kind of like process of discovery, honestly. Like I'm always learning how to do it more and more. And my current process is to like read the script once without making any notes, and then read it again and start breaking down. I'll start breaking down all the scripted props. So noting them all, and then maybe I'll read it again and start doing by location. And then I also try and get like anything that's sort of like a larger gag, or something that's going to be like, oh, this will take like weeks of planning and discussions and all that kind of stuff, like just nailing those things down. The thing is that also the first ADs, the directors, the producers, they're all doing these things too, and they've probably already got the big gag things kind of like flagged. So I'm trying to look for things that they may have not have flagged, that I can be like, this is actually, just so that when we're referencing, we're going through our meeting, when we're starting our meetings, I can just make sure that like, I know that they're probably going to be like, yeah, this is the whole thing, that we're going to have meetings based on just this whole, part where the she comes out of the cake or something, whatever, something like that. Or like they drop all the stuff and everything goes flying. That will have its own meeting, and I'm aware of that. But then I'm just looking for certain things that are like, that may not seem big, but like that should probably have like a larger discussion at some point.
We better get back to this, otherwise we might. Yeah, if we forget this, this could be a problem.
Exactly, and that's the thing is, I mean, there's so many. I mean, making a film is like there's just like nothing but problems to deal with, and like
I've heard that before.
And like, and we're not. There's so little time. There's so many different departments, all need different answers, and depending on who's at the helm for directing or producing and all that other stuff, you just don't really know. There may not be a lot of guidance, and so sometimes you just have to like. A big part of my job is also figuring out these people and kind of like being able to kind of just learn who they are in like just generic back and forth conversations, not necessarily about the props, but just like learning about how they receive information and how they feel, what their like knee-jerk reactions are to like different other information. And then I can kind of ascribe that to ways that they might feel about other scenarios where I might have a question, but I know that it might be hard to get that answer. And they have to deal with questions all day. Like 100% of what part of their job is answering questions. Like that's all that a director will do in a lot of the time.
Yeah.
They have to have so many answers. Everyone's asking you, and it's like as I'm a new props master. I've only been doing it for a couple of years now as props master, and just the amount of questions that come at me now, of like, should we have more than $30 available in change for the cash register, or should we have, or is $30 enough? And it's like just even asking me the question is like, oh God, like it's my problem that I have to have an answer, And so I can feel the director's point of view sometimes. It's like, okay, like asking every question, even if it's a good one, may not be the best way to get it. It's like sometimes it's better to just maybe anticipate or have a few options and anticipate a few options for them that they can like, pick from.
Do we want 30, 40, 50, or $60 in change? Make a decision. Okay, go. Put it in. Just
have it there.
Yeah.
And just pick one. And if it's a problem, then deal with it after with what I mean? But like,
make a decision.
You may not need, that's maybe not the decision that needs to be made even, you know what I mean? So, anyway, I don't know. I'm trailing.
That's fine. No. That's like, your process. Like that's what I wanted. I wanted to know like where your brain, because you're 3-dimensionally creating things, and it's me. I'm sure it's me because like I have a hard time imagining. Like I have a big imagination, but if you ask me to imagine an elephant, I can't imagine an elephant in real life. But I could imagine myself being chased by an elephant, and it would be picture perfect. So I'm just
right.
I am a talent crush on people who you can go read a script and then start to give a character nuance from a perspective of it just being a thing, and then that thing is created over the process of the film when you're finally like it's evolving, right? Like you're saying, you're continually finding it.
And to be clear, it's like the process is like reading the script, talking with the production designer, who is a huge part in my world. So discussing the look of the film with the production designer and what he or she's vision is and what they are trying to accomplish, right? In terms of like, is it dark or is it surreal or is it like real? You know, like what are we trying to do? Like, are we trying to match real, one for one a reality of the world, or are we playing with the idea, tropes, or are we trying to, like certain directors, like on Nobody, the director was like, that movie is a full on, it's surreal. It's like you're making a kind of a trope film that like is like all of the other movies like it. Like you're trying to make movies that are like it.
Elia, right?
Elia, yes, that's right.
Yeah, I love Nobody. we had Paisley. We had Paisley on the show, and it was just awesome to talk to her. Like I was like, you are the good side of Hutch's character. That was
right.
Like whenever she's there, he becomes a non-hitman. And then and she humanizes him, and in a shoot 'em up, kill everybody, John Wick proxy film, to have that soft emotional moment is only because it's Paisley, because she just brought it. And I was like, fuck.
Oh man, absolutely.
My partner Mark called her out for it, and she was I was like, man, good eye, Mark.
Yeah,
I don't have that keen of an eye when it comes to that kind of thing. So no, I loved. What was that like? Like you mentioned two things, and I'm glad you mentioned the thing because then we can get right to it. Is it production design and props, like world building and things that go on, that are in the world. Right, like you're married to each other. You're very yin and yang. You're very, if it's this, then it has to be that. How was there a time on Nobody where you guys like really had to stretch it and be like, what to the 10th degree? How far did you have to go sometimes?
With Nobody, I think with Nobody, it's like you're making a fictional, like it's supposed to be rooted in real life, sure. But like, it's totally, I don't think most people would be like, obviously this is a fictional story.
This isn't War of the Worlds and Orson Welles reading on the radio, right? Like,
yeah, it is like entertainment. And I think the way you have to kind of approach that kind of storytelling is like, is it entertaining? You're not trying to like bog down with details about the reality of a situation. Like, like my partner, my wife, Casey, was the on-set costume supervisor.
Okay.
For that show. And like the amount of the bad guys, like just even the concept of the bad guys is like, they would just be the same. The stunt coordinator would be like, this guy's going to be this bad guy, and then he's going to be this bad guy, like for, in the course of a day. And it was like really hard to understand, like, well, wait, didn't that guy just get shot? Like over here, how can he be running down the stairs here? Like, just like the way that the filmmaking process was. And it was really hard to understand. But then you watch the movie and you're like, oh, no one cares. Like, it can be the same guy getting shot and then thrown out the window over here. Like, no one knows or understands or cares about that. Like,
we're not focusing on. Okay, I get it.
No one's following all these bad guys and what they look like and doing all these things. But like, you don't really realize when you're, it's like you're trying to do the show really, like, you're trying to do it by your standards, and it's like, oh yeah. Also, it's hard to even understand. It's hard to follow when you're watching the movie. It's edited to be like completely understandable, but. And anyway, but I was like, in that way, it's like, we were definitely making things up. I mean, it wasn't like that crazy. It's not like the guy was kind of like how did I put it? It was like he was kind of like if like Kevin McAllister from Home Alone grew up.
Is that one of the blonde bad guys?
No, like if Bob Odenkirk's character in Nobody is like if the guy Home Alone grew up.
Okay, Kevin McAllister is that's funny. Yeah, it kind of is.
It's like he has like a whole like sequence at the like halfway through the end of the movie where he's like booby trapping his like office and like
yeah. No, it's the Wet Bandits. It's exactly everything I remember from my childhood. Now, when you good job, Elia. Way to deep cut the shit out of that. That's awesome.
Right.
Okay, maybe a bad example because you're right. Like it is life. It's not Hellboy, right? It's not a sci-fi or a period piece. So okay,
we were not creating some sort of like fantasy.
Okay, then I'll hit you with this. I know you did Tales from the Loop, and I got very lucky one day. I got to go down to one of the production offices just to drop something off, I think, and I saw a bunch of the shots of the Loop facility and just all of the things. And I got to ask you, like, that's from my understanding, that was a coffee table book of art that was then turned into a game that then maybe off the game spawned these stories. Am I right on that or am I wrong?
Yeah, I think you're basically right.
I'm paraphrasing
I think
probably.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the like coffee table of art versus the game, as if I think it may have been all the same thing, or maybe the coffee table book is based off the game.
Yeah,
but it's all the same. It's all the same artist and writer who Simon. I can't remember his last name. Simon. I don't want to.
I'll bring it up.
Try.
You keep talking.
But it's based off of, basically he had an RPG game, which I'm not familiar with, like the concept of, and I know a little bit about that stuff, but basically it's like a Dungeons and Dragons style thing, but you play through these scenarios, but it was based in a world where there is these very kind of like strange power and like almost like magical science facilities that were capable of, time changing capabilities or body switching capabilities and just the power of this. Yeah, these otherworldly things. And it was like harnessed on this power from maybe this, I don't know, strange science that had created a thing that was like, basically they'd done like some weird math and created out of the universe, which is, I guess also here on Earth, like a shard of this giant, I don't know. Well, I mean, it's in the show. All these things are in the show, but so yeah, I mean, the show was very exploratory in that it had definitely fantasy based concepts, but again, it was all rooted in familiarity and rooted in nostalgia. A lot of it, like it's based in the 80s and the 60s and stuff. So it's kind of like a play on our nostalgia with like a little twinge of like what could be if there was all this like magic science going on, but based in the 50s and 80s and stuff. So it was it was cool because it was a very specific playful kind of, like you had a limit because they'd be creating these devices, that could stop time, for instance, but that device would have to be, rooted in the designs of like a, space age 70s style device, like, so it's not like you're just creating a thing that doesn't exist. It's like, it's got to like look like things that would exist. It looks like something that they would have designed to be in that time frame.
Where are you?
but it wouldn't exist.
Yeah, like where are you pulling inspiration for this? Like how far back do you go? How far forward do you go? Like where's
Yeah.
the line? Like, I mean, the stuff that I saw, and I love the series. I mean, I know a lot of people were like, it was a slow burn, right? A lot, like I can,
Absolutely.
and it was very rooted in story. And
Mm-hmm.
you grew with these characters, and they didn't come at you fast. It wasn't like it's not a Marvel, it's not a roller coaster ride, right? These are people,
No.
but they're people in this very science fiction world, and I was very saddened when it didn't come back, because I was like, I loved how they kind of tied together in that they were in a universe, but they didn't tie together in a linear fashion where everybody experienced, like they were all experiencing the same thing. They were just experiencing maybe in the same town or across a field, right? Like it was very universe and otherworldly again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, at that time, I did not props master that show. I was assistant props master, and I was chiefly on set. So my position there was facilitating the on-set, organization of just like making sure that everything is in front of the camera at the right time, and available, without waiting on us. So I did not, aside from the pilot episode, which I did get to prep for. So that I did prep, and had like a large part in forming all the pieces that went into that. But as soon as we went rolling into actual filming, by episode 2 already, I was just dealing with, I was getting dropped off stuff from the props masters and the offset crew, and just kind of dealing with what that stuff was on set, and helping facilitate that to the production crew. So, but the pilot, which I can speak to, was particularly, I mean, that was like the larger, I think that was like a 20-day shoot, whereas the other ones were a 14-day shoot.
So you're saying that each episode was 14 days unless the pilot was 20, right?
I think the pilot may have been 20. Yeah.
Is that a long time? That seems like a long time for a pilot episode of television. But at that level,
for an hour of television, I mean, or 40 something minutes, I guess, or whatever it was. Yeah, I mean, you see it on
screen. It's there. It's beautiful. Like,
but the pilot is otherworldly. I mean, and that was that. Yeah, I mean, I think they went pretty hard into the pilot. Like, the rest of the show was like obviously very well prepped and executed, but the pilot was it was like a whole other world of, for me anyway, it was like a step into another realm of like possibility of how to film, how to like approach filmmaking, even to approach my job. Like, it actually changed me in a big way, because I remember on that show they had a lot of people from out of town, like heavy names, I think it was Victor Hugo. No, Victor.
I'll pull it up.
Victor was the set decorator. The production designer was like, I can't remember all these names. It's kind of silly, but
wasn't it Julia
bad
Roberts'
for an interview?
Husband, who's the DP too? Wasn't he?
Pardon me, sorry?
Wasn't the director of photography? Wasn't Julia Roberts' husband? Or was that a different film?
That was
was that Flag Day?
That was the Sean Penn. Yeah, Flag Day.
Okay, yeah. I remember somebody's hubby was like it.
No,
just...
the DOP for the pilot episode was Jeff Cronenwith, who is he's like a high-end Hollywood DP, like legend, kind of like family family DP kind of guy. Like his dad was a DP in old Hollywood kind of thing.
Okay.
He does all of Fincher's stuff. I think he did Fight Club and some other big stuff.
Guy knows how to do a take, or 1200.
Yeah, exactly. The guy who knows how to do a take. Exactly.
Yeah. So hang on here. So there's Ole Brat Birkland for DP or cinematographer, I should say. Luc Montpellier, Jeff Cronenweth, like you said, one episode, and then Craig Wobleski.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was such a beautiful thing to watch. Like I was, you're like, that's moving art.
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing. It's like I really felt like we were trying to create those pictures, because they were pictures that, as you said, that book, there was a coffee table book of beautiful art by the artist Simon. And we were like actually creating those things, and making it happen on screen. And yeah, it was beautiful work.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
The one episode where one of the kids, spoiler alert, becomes a robot. Do you now when does that stop being a prop and when does it start being a character?
Oh yeah, so no, that like the robot.
I mean, that was such a heartbreaking episode too.
Yeah, the robot ends up. The robot was like a whole team out of LA that just did that robot. I can't remember the name of the what were they called? Yeah, I'm super bad for this stuff. I'm sorry, but
hang on, I got it all right here.
Yeah, you got lots of stuff to pull up.
I'm a one-man show. I'm used to it.
Yeah, exactly. They built the robot and had it all lit up and all that stuff and puppeteered it and all the things. They were like a puppeteering company that did the whole thing. So they did the robot. They also did later. I don't know if you've watched later on in the season. There's a backstory for the dad about how he gets left on a deserted island.
I vaguely remember. I watched it as soon as it came out, but yeah, I remember.
And there's like a vagrant like robot living on the island.
Yeah. Okay.
So they also built that, which is also, it was a great build. I love that thing.
When you look at stuff and you like, do you try? Is the goal is obviously to try to remake the world and remake the things as if it's natural, as if it's no effort at all, right? Because then the eye is tricked and you win. But do you try to buy things more than make things for time and everything? Or do you want to like, how a surgeon wants to cut? Do you default to wanting to build, or are you like, well, I mean, if it's easy, this is easier, quicker, looks like the same thing, or you haven't made it, thus it's not the same thing.
It's so, I mean, the thing is like, it's so depending on the schedule, budget,
there's that word, budget.
Yeah, exactly. Time, budget, money, time.
The pillars, the 3 pillars of making a film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, of course we want it to be, I mean, if I had like, for instance, on the pilot episode of Tales from the Loop, the director, he was very, he just didn't, he had no sense of like what it took to do something. He only had a sense of, as like a director, in my mind, he had like a pure director's sense, like a pure artist sense, in that he thought like anything that he could think of should be able to be available for the shot or for the movie or his idea. Like, there should be no constraints on it. Either we can buy it, or it can be made, or whatever needs to happen in order for it to happen. He had no sort of like, he didn't like default, which a lot of most considerate people would do, is like they default to like, unless you can't get that in time, or, or it's too hard to find, or, they're constantly like self limiting,
Modulating.
their own, they're self-limiting their own like desires because they're like, yeah, because we're also just making a movie. It's not brain surgery. There's like kind of this like mantra that like, filmmakers use, people in the industry use. It's like, this isn't heart surgery, like we're just making a TV show, we
Should
can
be fun.
do with
Yeah.
whatever we're making.
Yeah.
And then I had never really kind of experienced this like the total flip side until I met this guy, and it was like you would have believed that this was more important than heart surgery when you were working for him. Like it was the way he approached his art and his craft was like with pure belief and energy in that he should be able to see it through. And otherwise, the compromise would have defeated the entire point,
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
Obviously it's filmmaking, you're constantly having to compromise anyway, but any opportunity he could. My point being is that it opened my eyes to kind of like really taking what I did to be a serious art form as opposed to just getting it done,
That's
which is kind of this like something that you get a lot of that sense out of, the modern filmmaking time. It's like everyone's just trying to get a show done just so they get it over with and get it on air and just get to the next thing, because people just have like undying thirst for content. But he was really trying to get something that's like actually good. I don't care, if no one watches it, he wants it to be good, but I guess my point is that there was times where I'd be able to like, if he wanted something, I could just say, okay. I could talk to the first AD, I could talk to whoever's on set, the producers, and be like, hey, so-and-so wants this thing. I've got to take care of that now. And it's going to take me 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. And then everyone would be like, okay, good luck. Tell us how you're doing when you get to that point, and let us know when you're ready. And then everyone would just sit around and wait for me, like for whatever to happen.
Yeah.
But it was just like the dedication to like someone's like mind thinking of something. And it was just like a very new scenario that I hadn't really been
it's a true
aware
sense
of before.
It's a true sense in understanding the art that's in what you do. And and it shows, man. Like I watched that because I'm a Manitoba film nerd, so you watch everything. Like I want to do. We're all slowly working our way through the list, we call it, which is everything that's been made here, good, bad, or indifferent. We're watching everything, and then we're gonna we want to do
good.
Like anybody significant from anything they've made. So and we're gonna go chronologically. Like we're gonna go back as far as we can.
Oh, good for you guys.
And do it, because it's like you can do the top 250, you can do the 100 best films. Yes, we all eventually have done those, will do them, or have done them. But when you live in a province like I do, like there's like, you want a Hallmark movie, you want to shoot 'em up, you want a period piece, you want a war drama, you want sketch comedy. Right. Like it's all here. And yeah, like I remember watching that pilot episode and just being like, this is like, hey, look at this. Like, look, as much as pay attention, it's look and experience, and like you can freeze the frame and it's a work of art. So kudos, man.
Yeah. When we had there was something that's quite rare. You wouldn't see this on any show, but there was a visiting, like the on-set dresser. They had an on-set dresser from out of town, from LA. They had a whole set deck team from LA. Kind of like helping set up this pilot episode. And part of that was an on-set dresser. And he was like, his resume is kind of like maybe one of the most like impressive resumes I've seen in film. Like, because often, a show comes in and you're like, you'll look up the DOP and you're like, oh, that guy did, he like was the camera operator on Braveheart, or you know, like there'll be like some really impressive credits. But just the amount of credits on this guy's resume was like, he's done, you know, it was just like he was the on-set dresser for There Will Be Blood or Lincoln, or, you know, just like on and on and on, like a bunch of Paul Thomas Anderson films and a bunch
films.
of like, yeah, like just like amazing films.
Yeah.
And I was going, oh my God, this guy's coming to Winnipeg and he's going to be the on-set dresser. Like, and I'm like the, you know, on-set props guy. So I'm going to be like dealing with him, you know, like, and just seeing his work ethic and the way he just never gave up on trying to make the set look better, you know, right up until the last second, until you couldn't, you know, it was like, get off the set, like stop dealing with, you know, stop fussing with stuff. He was there, like picking out everything that could just be just a bit better in the frame, and had so many tricks, and was a real like, yeah, it was like just like awesome thing for me to see. Be like, okay, there is a level of care and effort that can go into this job that really does show. It makes a difference on the product, and it makes a difference on set. Like everyone regarded him as being, you know, like a worthy person to be there, and like respected his presence, because you could tell that he just cared about what he was doing so much. And I feel like often, you know, maybe this is a side topic, but like there can be on a lot of shows, you know, a lot of shows will go on nowadays, and, you know, just the if people don't get respect, then they often don't respect themselves, or they may not respect their position. If a position doesn't get a lot of respect, then the people in that position maybe not respect the position and think it's not that important
by proxy.
And yeah, exactly. It's like, well, then they won't try that hard, because it's like, well, no one even thinks that it's an important thing to do anyway.
Yeah.
And he kind of just like completely bucked like that for me. Like not that I didn't think it was important. It's just that he made it very easily well known on set that like he's in charge of the set, and everyone was like very aware of it. And it was just such an amazing thing to witness for me.
That would be,
which, you know, just gives you kind of like confidence in being like, oh yeah, like I'm the one who knows the most about what I'm doing, not not some other guy in another department who doesn't care.
Stop telling me to fuss on set. No idea.
Yeah.
You know, no, that would be a thing. Like, and that's the stuff you film. Like, that's the story behind the set, where he would be there until the final, like, fucking action, get off the set, you know, like that. Yeah. That's what's remembered. The mythology of the film itself is part of the film itself, because you know that right before every take, everything was being fussed with and made and built and created.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And whatnot.
Absolutely.
So like, what do you like to prop the most? Like, we live in a world right now where, and like, how old are you? You're probably what, late 30s like me?
I'm 35.
You're 35.
34.
Okay. All right. I'm 39. So we both got the 90s, right? We both got an era of film that original storytelling, risk, maverick filmmaking, new ways to film, new, like the Steadicam is what, late 80s, early 90s, pinhole cams, like just different everything. So I imagine watching prop change over time. You've gotten, and your resume says, like, you did the Porter, so you've done period, you've done sci-fi, Tales from the Loop. Do you have like do you like to sniff out a prop job and be like, I want to prop this more? Like, everything for you, I imagine, is a lot more fun than the average desk job, but at the same time, sometimes it's work, right? Sometimes, you know, you just have to work, and you know, you didn't want to do that, but you'd rather do this. So is there an itch you would like to scratch?
I think, I mean, ideally, I would say there's definitely scenarios where it's like, I would like to work on maybe whatever feature is going to be on like typically a feature film is the best scenario,
Sure,
like
yeah.
as opposed to television or a series. Just because I like the format. I like the format of a 2-hour feature film, and just the workload that is on script, and to break down and to do that work. It's just like feasible to like keep it in your brain and
Sure.
actually figure it out. And there's like fewer people involved. It's just like less directors and less,
Yeah.
all that other
Less
stuff.
questions.
Well, there's just like you can just like really nail down that relationship with that director and deal with that, But so a feature for sure. I mean, we're going to be seeing a lot more of these now. I predict in general, but like it's like the 90s,
Nostalgia
early 80s,
resurgence.
like 80. Yeah, there's going to be a nostalgia resurgence,
The
which I
requel?
think is going to be like it's already started.
Yeah. Ghostbusters.
but like
Ghostbusters.
exactly
Right. Like that's the model that I think is. You're right, and I think Ghostbusters will be what they trace.
exactly. I think you're right. Well, and also the Stranger Things and that kind of stuff, right? So
yeah.
And I think that stuff's like it's great because it's like hilarious amount of consumerism in that time of world and like commercialization.
Yeah.
And so like everything is branded, and I just like don't see how you get around it like without having insane amounts of like real life branding and commercialization is just like was like ubiquitous with like childhood at that time. Like and everything was like cross promotionalized. So it's just like such a strange time just for brands, I guess. But I just like the time because there's just so much stuff. There's like so much more plastic.
Yeah.
Like it was just like a time of like cheap plastic and lots and lots of different stuff.
Gluttony.
Yeah. A gluttony of crap.
Yeah. It's floating in the ocean, man.
Yeah, it's floating in the ocean now. Exactly.
Like,
I guess I could go there to get some of the stuff.
You know what? Be the first props master to pull from that island and put it in a film. Seriously. Like next time you need
a movie made fully of props from the island.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Like, how many people would be throwing money at you to be like, and they'd be like, I want to donate $1,000 of the trash island to your film. And then,
yeah, I mean, I get at the same time, I definitely don't want to be making more of it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Right. An upcycle. And I mean, I guess that's like, this is going to like, how much
garbage do I produce?
No. Cause everything like, you probably have to make like 14 of some things sometimes. Right. Cause if it's being broken in a take, you got to have backups, I would imagine. Right. Or like different versions of a thing. Like I've talked to Heather, in costume, Heather, name of
Heather Neal.
Thank you. Heather Neal. And, we're huge fans of costume here. And she's told me about how there's like 14 different versions of a costume sometimes because if your story is Citizen Kane, you need to have style over time.
Yeah.
Right. So are you building a thing directly to be a thing? Like how you were saying how Greens is responsible for replicating the interior from the exterior. They go get that tree. So are you like, if we're going to build this,
oh yeah.
Is it made out of something else to get there quicker? Like, you know what I mean? Like concrete, I know is not concrete, or like ice is not ice, right? Like those kinds of things. Like what are your tricks and cheats? What are we watching?
There's lots and lots of that stuff. So like, ice is often acrylic or rubber, because it doesn't melt, or make noise. Another one that I haven't used, but I've always like looked into it is using mashed potatoes for ice cream because it doesn't melt.
Yeah, you can form it like in Close Encounters.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're Richard Dreyfuss.
I mean, there's no end to those things, right? But like, yeah, I mean, you're constantly like learning like new different little secrets about tricks. And I mean, there's like that guy on YouTube, Scott Prop and Roll. I'm not sure if you're aware.
I know
that guy.
Yeah. Is he the one that built
that guy?
Like, is he the one that built the lightsaber?
Oh, I
Is
don't
that
know.
him?
Maybe he did build a lightsaber. I'm not sure. I haven't seen all of his things, but I know that he does like a lot of a series of different like things about, showing what like edible dirt is, or how to make, edible sand,
Oh,
uh,
this
or like
this
all these different breakaway products, and just kind of revealing, behind the curtain of all that stuff, and which has been great because it's like kind of fun to watch, him just like play with all the things. But
I think
um
I think the moment that all that stuff started being like wrestling, I think really had a huge thing with the kayfabe in pulling back the curtain and being like, is it real? Is it fake? Is it real? Is it fake? And
right.
with nowadays, like with technology and how we're all like nuts for screens and things and how they're all made, like I think the pulling back the curtain, it brings people in, makes them part of the experience, right? Like when I know how they're doing the Mandalorian and how they're using that interior wrap for green screen and real time like background creation, I'm like, that's awesome, right? Like I don't, the fantasy doesn't need to be there anymore now.
Well, and I think that's just like kind of it's just like it's a bit of a movement in these days in general. Like I remember, for instance, when I watched like Boyhood, the film, Linklater's film Boyhood, and also Birdman. Those both came out kind of near the same time. But I remember both of those films, and I think this is also after Children of Men, where, it's just like those really long, like Lubinsky, super
takes.
long one take scenarios.
Yeah.
But then Birdman was like this movie that was like, it's all one take and, it just looks like whatever. And it's beautiful. And I've seen it a million times, but like just sort of the lore of filmmaking and like how it was made and how could they do this. And, like this, the idea of the lore of the filmmaking came kind of like crept out of the like, enthusiasts world and into the mainstream of like, it was a part of the movie. It's part of it's almost like part of the marketing of the film is like, they made a movie. It's not real. It's like, you're supposed to be aware that it's like a feat, a technological feat.
Yes.
As opposed to just a good story. It's like, you're supposed to be aware of the fact that like, you think, you're watching an illusion and you're aware of that. And look how great it is, and then Boyhood, the same thing. It was like the story of, oh, he made this movie with the same kid over 12 years. And how about that for an idea? It's like the story of that, of the filmmaking process is a huge part of the film itself. And I feel like that's like kind of crept into the mainstream now. It's like, it's like you see all over. I mean, I noticed, I'm not on Instagram right now, but like, I remember like recently on Instagram, it's like, maybe it's just the algorithm for me, but like, there's just tons and tons of like behind the scenes information and like so much is available about like the filmmaking process. The like, gone are the days of it being some sort of like secret, like, oh, there's like a secret society of filmmakers that make movies and no one knows what they're doing or how they do anything, and like no one shares any information. And now it's like everyone, there's like there's a props master, like a current props master, like just doing YouTube videos talking about all of the things he does and how he, creates all these different illusions. So it's kind of like, it's funny. I've just noticed sort of a shift culturally in that like people just want to know everything.
Yeah, dude, that's why you're here.
That's why I'm here.
That's why you're here. Like I want to know, and I've got 8 other friends that love knowing, and I'm like, okay, those are pretty good odds. So like, I'm pretty sure that like, it's like, okay, so and I think like we all, it's long days, hard work, multiple tasks. Of course, a Starbucks cup might accidentally show up in the background, right? Like that was a huge crowning moment for what happens when you're working 16-hour days. Like those kinds of things, as much as they suck, they actually did a little bit to show being like, this is how much it takes to make.
Yeah, there's people doing this.
Yeah, there's humans doing this, right? It humanized the thing that stopped being so like, Greek tragedy, like Romanesque, Titanish, right? Like on a mountaintop that you had no access to. It's like, no, these are people. They're imperfect. They fuck up.
Yeah.
Shut up. Leave it alone.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
99 other % of the thing is great. So just don't be a dick. But when when you do a thing and you make a thing, do you get married to stuff? I asked this of Heather and Patty when we did costumes. Do you make a thing and you're like, God, I just want to, because you say you like things. Do you sometimes make a thing or find a thing and you're like, I just want that. I don't want that to be broken. Or you get married to a piece, or you commitment. Do you have any commitment to anything that you've seen go bye-bye and break?
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. It's like,
because now that you see it from an art
the
perspective.
way that I approach it is, it's all about the functionality. Like, it's got to look, and part of that is the look. It's got to function in several different ways. It has to function in that it looks what it's supposed to look like. So if it's I don't know, like a toaster, I don't know, or like someone's like book, if it's like their diary and it's filled with scribblings and ideas and drawings and all that stuff. And then, say they have to burn it. It's like, that's in the script, that's the function. I'm more worried about, hopefully it burns, like it looks nice when it burns, like that's how I'm approaching it. It's, and of course there's going to be lots of them, but like, I'm not approaching it from this thing is just like this perfect thing. Cause plus obviously there's going to be a version of it that's not getting burnt for sure. There's going to be one if that's precious.
Yeah, if it's that pivotal to the plot. Yeah, totally right.
If it's that pivotal to the plot, there's definitely one that's not getting burnt.
Yeah, we will have spares.
Yeah, but like but at the end of the day, it's like, no, I'm not too precious about those things. I do remember a story though about I didn't work on Flag Day, but apparently Sean Penn, there was like the house burns. I haven't seen the film either, but there's apparently the scene where the house burns, and in the house there's a record collection. And I guess one of the guys that I work with, Sai, a friend of mine, Sai, was the on-set dresser, and I think he had took all the records out or was like trying to take the records out because he's like, I don't want to burn these records. And Sean was like, what the hell are you doing? I want to have records in every one of the records, like sleeves. Like there has to be a record in every one of them because it has to look right when they're burning.
Yeah.
And so okay. And it's like the camera's from far away. You'd never see it or whatever. Like, it's like in this way, it's like, it's covered in gasoline. Like, it's like all sorts of different scenarios where it's like, you can't really tell. But I remember Sai being like particularly upset that they're like burning all these vinyl records. Like a huge shelf full of these records. And he's like, he's a music guy and probably just felt bad about that. But that's the point. That's the point where I'd be like, yeah, it's too bad that we're burning all these records. Like they're definitely like, they were made once and now they're getting burnt, and hopefully they're all just a bunch of, records that no one wants to listen to. But
yeah, like polka and the stuff at Valley Village that nobody ever
hopefully
thinks.
they're all Nana Murascuri sings over and over.
Well played, sir. Deep cut. I like it. Law. Okay.
Just as an inside joke for myself, because
Yeah.
I used to, every time I looked for records at Valley Village, there would be like 10 of them.
Yeah. No, I know. Like I've restarted collecting. I've got a pretty decent go at it. And by decent, I think it's decent. Like it's like 4 or 5 crates, but whatever. Like, and you go in and you're like, Valley Village, and you just hope you'll find some gems, and they're always like Uncle
all
Larry's.
Nana Murascuri.
Yeah, totally. I think we're going to the same Valley Village. this, like when you so you've got your set stuff and you've got your environmental stuff and things that interact with the actor, but then there's things that are key to the actor and key to the character and key to always being with them, right? Like a prop that they're glasses, right, or a monocle or something that is part of their. So you're making a thing, and then all of a sudden the characters, we get to that point in the story, like is there any input from who you're from anybody in that department, or are you
absolutely?
Yeah
no, so of course, like, I mean, I will always do, if I'm props mastering, and with the props masters that I work with too, like I've worked for Mark Strachan and for Alexis Labra and for Jason Gibbs. And all those guys they've all taught me essentially how to do it. And like the way to do it is you always have like a fitting with your actors. You meet them, you go through as much as what they're willing to go through with you, like not all of them want to or care all that much or have that time to give you, but you just meet them with wherever they're able to meet you at and offer them a chance to like input, and I mean, at the end of the day, you're really helping yourself, because whatever it is that they don't like, if they don't, you want to get what they don't like out of the way before you're on set.
I'm wondering where that relationship starts, right? Like where you're like, okay, we're building this thing now. It's got to interact with this. They got to hold it. They got to wear it. They got to position it. Like there's a point where all that starts. And I'm just wondering, like, I'm thinking outside of my comfort zone, I guess. And I'm thinking of, like, if I was an actor and I was going to have to interact with things, I would personally, I would want to. I'm a control freak. I'm an only child. I got it all the time. I would want to be involved in the process of making it, because then I'm in it. I'm involved with it. It's tangible.
Yeah.
Where just showing up to being like, here's the thing. So okay. That's and like you say, like everybody's got a different process.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's like every actor is going to be a little bit different. Some don't care at all and would rather not talk to you, and some are giving you the process, because I mean the real like professional actors or actors that have like maybe done a lot of shows, and have a long career in it, realize that everyone is basically there doing a job.
Yeah,
we're all there to perform something, and most likely we're all doing something that's going to help their process make it more efficient over time, or it's in their interest. So some actors are just like, they don't want to care, and that's okay. And if that's the prerogative, then you just deal with them when you can, based on their comfort level, whenever they're available throughout the weeks or whatever, as you're filming. And you just deal with it that way. And that's just like, you're not trying to be friends or best friends or any sort of, like create any sort of like scenario that's like beneficial for that reason. It's just like, how do you get the job done?
Yeah.
And get the thing that you need done. Either you're trying to get like the director's vision onto them, or you're trying to sell them sometimes the director's idea, when they're like looking at options, and you're like, here's what the director wants, and that's kind of the idea. Or you've got some time with them and you can discuss with them what they want. A good director often is saying, let the actor choose, and then you can go to the actor and say, the director would like you to choose, and then they're like, oh yes, of course I should be choosing, the director says so, you can kind of like play them off each other, obviously. So you use all these tricks, I guess, and then eventually you get to a decision somewhere down the line, and
sure,
everyone's happy, but of course I'm always like hoping that the actor wants to be involved and wants to have interaction and feel their stuff and be interested in their props. Like, and the best thing you can do is, the best thing for me is if the actor's interested in their props, it's great, because then I know I have input. It's like I know that what I'm going to be providing is going to be something that they've thought about and are interested, and that's the best scenario.
Oh, I mean, that's everything you want. Lightning in a bottle, whatever analogy you want to put in there. Feel free, listener. But because I ran out. But yeah, no, I get it. I just I'm always curious when everybody cross paths, right? Like at what point, right? That's my like I look at it as a perfectly tuned race car, and then it has to pit every once in a while and reset and go back out, and it's all running at the same. Everybody's running at the same RPMs, and I'm like,
it's an ongoing discussion. It's an ongoing kind of discussion throughout the whole process, right? So
yeah, that's the beauty. I think that's where the magic is, right? Because it's like we started with this, but we ended with that, and then throughout all these iterations and meetings and conversations, it kind of comes to fruition in some way.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's some like oddball stuff that just crosses my brain whenever I see a thing. Like, can you confirm the iPhone thing? Can you know how a bad guy in a film or a series is not permitted to have an iPhone? And what other brand issues are there with stuff like this?
So there's a bad guy. A bad guy is not permitted to have an iPhone if you're trying to get permission from Apple to use iPhone products in your movie. So that's a bit of a like what I mean by that is, if you're not asking Apple for permission to have their products in your movie and you're just using them anyway, you can give them to anyone. But as soon as you get Apple involved in because the thing with the Apple iPhone is that it looks like most other phones anyway.
Yeah, it's very generic in shape.
And if you see an Apple brand on it, then yes, you're going to need permission. Or if you see the apps or the screen of the phone and you can tell that it's an iPhone, that's all registered trademark stuff. So you have to get permission from iPhone for that as well. So, but if the actor is just like holding a black thing in their hand and they can't tell what it is, you do not need to get permission. But if you're getting product placement, so for instance, in Nobody, we had a bunch of product placement from Apple. And part of the stipulation there was that none of the bad guys in that movie could have iPhones. So yes, that is okay. That is true. And that's true for probably most brands that are going to give you free stuff. Like Apple's like a bit more intense about it, because it's just, and the thing is that you wouldn't really think of it as being like crazy, but like the thing about phones is that everyone has one. So Apple has the ability to keep the good guys with iPhones and make it their competitors with bad phones, with other phones. Sorry, with bad guy phones. So they can just control it as easy as that, by if they're providing phones and equipment for a movie, they can just say only the good guys or only people that we deem good guys can have them, and everyone else has to have a different brand of phone. And it's just like a really simple way for them to make sure that their brand is being kept in good light.
Oh yeah, I mean, you don't want that makes perfect sense. It's all about the optics, really. At the end of the day, I just you hear that and then you're like, do we know anybody who can confirm that? And I was like, props guy, yeah, okay, definitely, thank you. That's because I've been telling people that, and then.
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. And that's specifically on a show where you're trying to get Apple to sign off on your show. Yeah. So, and the thing is about that is like, if you're just ignoring getting if you're trying to ignore the idea of getting their sign off because you're just going to use their phone as like a blank black brick,
Yeah.
that you can't tell what it is, and you're burning in on the screen and everything, it's never going to be featured as an iPhone. Then it's not really an iPhone issue. It's just a phone. It doesn't matter what it is. But if you're using iPhone branding, that would definitely be a thing. Or if you're using product placement from them.
Do you still, like, when you watch a thing, what memories do you have of the props that you see that you are really proud of? Like, do you remember making them? Are you just looking at them as like, wow, that's the sum of, like you mentioned, the all the parts equaling one. What's that saying? Sorry, it's been a long day.
Greater than the sum of its parts.
Thank you. There you go, listeners. See, I know how to find them. Like, how do you view your work? Because the actor, they're like, I don't want to look at that. Like that new Nick Cage movie, The Unbearable Weight of Immense Talent. Like, he's playing himself. Like, that is a whole podcast episode that we can discuss it another day. But like, when you see your stuff, your stuff,
I have not seen it.
It's not out yet. Don't worry, you haven't missed it.
Okay, good.
But he will be playing himself. So when you see your stuff, like, I've realized that, film lives on in infamy, so it'll always be there. So what memories do you have of the props you make?
That's a good question. Like, I watch the movies or the television shows that I've worked on sometimes. And when I do, it's pretty quick, and it's the memories that flood back in aren't necessarily of the props, but they're of like the insane situations that took, like, I don't know, for instance, on like Nobody, there's a sequence in that movie where, there's just like certain sequences where you're just thinking about it after you've watched it. And it's like the screen time is like maybe like a minute and a half, but it took like 2.5 months of planning, and that's just like that you're just like thinking of all the different scenarios and things, like all the different dead end of roads that you went down to get to where you got to, and it's like, it kind of just floods back. Like, after the movie's over, when you're making it, you're like, oh yeah, I mean, it makes sense that we, like, looking back, you're like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Like, it was all pretty obvious going from this decision to this decision to this decision. But on the other side of it, you're just like, you remember, I kind of remember just like the amount of possibilities that were ahead of you, and all of the different, like, you took only one of them, and it's just like, it's just a crazy kind of flip side of that.
I would imagine.
Anyway,
it's there's nothing that isn't important or more important. It's all a team. It's all an effort. But like, you have a different experience to what you're producing than an actor will, or what a director will, because the director will be like, man, we should have cut here, or we should have, the editor been like, if I'd cut a half second earlier, like, and those are the pivotal things. And it, I always wonder what all the other departments feel when they watch the film, right? Because it's as important as the performance, because you're going to pay attention to that if it's off, which means it's part of the fucking performance.
Well, and if it's off, I mean, that's the first thing, right? Like, the thing about a prop is, if you've done your job right, even in the final product, first of all, you shouldn't really notice them. They should just be. They should be ubiquitous with the story and the place that you're telling. It should just feel completely natural. So it's not something that you're like, you shouldn't be doing this kind of, kind of looking at it funny, being like, well, that didn't seem right. So it shouldn't really be noticed. And then, the same goes for on set, like when you're working, if you can get through a day without anyone having to have even mentioned the props department, or, like, that would be kind of a perfect day.
That's your ace.
Where that's an ace, you know what I mean? Like, everyone's, in my opinion, it's like you're working at like you can only get a deficit. You know what I mean? Like, you can only You can only like a perfect day is just not having a problem. You know,
That's even. That's par.
that's par. Um, and it's not that of course that like if people like something that you've done or whatever, it's like that feels extra good, you know, and or sometimes on occasion, you know, like a director or or art director or you know director, an AD or someone will be like pull you aside and be like, hey, I just want to say that, you know, I noticed these things and you've done a really good job and blah blah blah. And it's often those are often the kudos you get. It's something, you know, between two people who are in it, and that's when you feel like you're actually like, okay, I think I'm doing a good job here, because that person doesn't have to do that, you know, that I can, but you're getting pulled aside just to be told that you're hitting the mark, you know, and someone's noticed it. So but like, yeah, I mean, when I watch a movie, it's not like, it's hard to, sometimes I see things and I'm like, oh, that's not good. Like, I'm probably the most aware of the props in a movie if I've was the props master or had anything to do with the props department in it.
Yeah.
You know, watching it, very aware of all the props and in what state they are in, and if they were a good choice or not. And they're not always very good. That's for sure.
Is with costuming, I mean, the things I've learned, I mean, I know there's rental houses all over the world for equipment, right? Lighting, cameras, all that stuff. You can rent that stuff all day long. But is there does like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit Toontown exist somewhere with all the props and gags that you can, like, do you have an Acme store that you can get your hands on stuff? Like, is there a Costco for props if you need to, you know, if you can't build in time, but you know there's a place that has, you know, your standard prop kit? There's like a plethora of different props, like specific factories or warehouses all around, mostly in the States, like in Chicago or in LA and in Atlanta. There's like different places that focus on all that stuff. There's of course also places in Toronto and Vancouver. Nothing local though. So to make, you know, one of the things that's often, you know, like kind of a bit of a shock for a traveling, like a set decorator who's from out of town to come here, or production designers that come in here, is like, it's like, oh, we don't have that thing that the director has just asked for. And it's like, well, we could just go to where's your rental shop or where's your place? And it's like, there's nothing here. You know, that's a day away by shipping at the best. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's a bit of a wake up call. It's like, okay, you just have to shoot here. It's a remote location. Like you're lost as much Barrens. As you, what's that? Sorry?
You're lost in the Barrens.
Yeah. Like we are a remote location. It's like, we have hardware stores and lots of local, you know, lots of things here still too. Yeah. Like there are things, but like even for camera, you know, like cameras, all the camera stuff comes from out of town. And, you know, if something breaks on the camera, it's a day wait to get that stuff fixed and stuff like that. So, you know, we are out of the way, and we're not even a direct flight from LA. So, you know, there's all sorts of, you know, complex issues you have to deal with that. But all to say is that there are prop shops outside of Winnipeg that I do use. There's like a bunch of them actually. So
awesome. I think I just wanted to know that there was a place where all of these fun gags and tropes, and
I know,
you know, like that's a fucking candy store in my mind for you.
I want to go. I have like a little bit of idea of a tour for myself one day, is to go and like go there, like go to LA and like go and tour Target props. And
let me know, dude. I'll take a fucking ride with you and we'll video it.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah,
We'll
because I just want to. I want to learn. I want to meet these because I've rented from them for years, and I want to like go and meet them and just go see the stuff. Just because I feel like it'd be better to be there, just to go take a look at it all. Because I feel like you get a better idea of what it is that's actually available, and I can pull up, in my mind really fast. Like, oh yeah, I need this thing. I know they have it. That's going to be the right thing.
Yeah,
and
and
go to
like
that place.
mental catalog, and put it in the back of your mind and be
Exactly.
like, I know they got this shit.
Yeah.
A couple more before you go. Just watching the clock here. When what's our obsession with props? Like what this resurgence of collection and fandom and I've been loving movies ever since I was a kid, but I was never as married to wanting to own what you see behind me. Like that's
Right.
a Star Wars build your own lightsaber, right? The closest I'll ever get to a lightsaber. And, then I've got a
Right.
Muppet of myself around the corner, right? Like
Yeah.
is it the tactile? Is it this is part of history? Is it just that there's an emotion attached to it? What do you think the draw is right now?
Oh man, I don't know if I'm not sure if it's even just right now, but I think a prop has has a lot of power in it, in that it can pushes that story, it pushes the story forward. Like it can be the letter from, the long lost letter from the so and so or whatever, or it
Yeah.
can be the ring, that was left or whatever, like the jewel in the Titanic.
What ring are we talking about?
I don't know. Yeah, the ring in the Lord of the Rings, whatever.
Yeah.
But on and on. Like all these, we ascribe kind of meaning onto objects all the time in our own personal lives. We idol, we create all sorts of different little idols and meaningful items, and with editing, with storytelling, we can funnel that energy and attention into scripted items, to be very, very meaningful. And so, it's just I think it's just part of the storytelling. I think it's what it really is it comes down to storytelling. And we can have characters and humans be interacting with each other, but we can also give them items that gives it a moment, something for them to share,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad explanation, but
No, dude,
I don't really know.
It's philosophical. It's sociological in the sense that I mean, maybe I just, prior to doing this, I was in my own little world and I didn't really give two shits. I just have noticed the lore and the love is fandom is a new age of fandom, and maybe that just comes with technology and whatnot, and it's just louder now than it used to be. And I'd rather have Indiana Jones's whip than Captain America's shield, right? Like that to me is like when you see these things that are so synonymous, like you said, with the character, to crack Indy's whip just once would you never forget that feeling.
That'd be pretty sweet.
I
just watched Indiana Jones the other day, actually, again, with my daughter.
Again, right? How many times have you watched it, you think?
Probably 50.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Which one?
We actually watched two, and we watched Raiders, and then we also watched The Last Crusade.
Oh, you skipped.
We skipped Temple because we saw it. We watched Temple maybe half a year ago, and we decided we didn't need to watch Temple twice in 1 year.
Yeah, you know the heart. It's been ripped out. You don't need to eat snake. You're good.
Yeah, and it was my favorite one. I watched Temple probably the most when I was a kid. It was my favorite one when I was
me too.
A little guy.
It was my first. I thought Raiders was the second one. I was so out of it as a kid.
Yeah, but now I think I think it's maybe it's third place.
Oh,
out of three.
Oh, we don't include Crystal Skull in your world either?
Well, not. I mean,
We don't jump the shark? We don't nuke the fridge?
I mean, I actually don't mind nuke the fridge. Is that a term? Because that's
Yeah.
pretty funny. Oh, I hadn't even heard that.
So that
I know
replaced-
that's in the movie, but I didn't realize that was a term for that.
Steven Spielberg replaced Jump the Shark from Happy Days when Fonzie jumps the
With
shark with
to
Nuke the
nuke the
fridge.
fridge. Oh my god!
So now, whenever you hear "jump the shark," you can say like "nuke the fridge," and people, like I nuke the fridge is nuke.
Didn't
the fridge.
nuke the fridge. Well, I did. I did at the end of Raiders, when like everyone's face was melting.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, and then everyone thought that Aliens was far fetched.
Yeah, spinning room with alien crystal skulls telling you the secrets of Earth. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's like the melting faces though. That's like that's legit.
Yeah,
It's like no.
that's Jesus's first move. I will melt your face off. But it still lives up. I mean, it's great watching that wax just melt instantly and turn to blood. Like
It's great.
I can watch that
that's
scene
beautiful.
over again.
That's good work.
What's
I was just watching, also just thinking about that movie again.
Yeah.
Is like just the fight sequences of like, just like where everyone like wait to get punched. Like there's like, it's like so one guy gets a punch, and then the other guy's like waiting for the other guy to like wind up, so that like just like the time, because they're like shooting on film, and probably like the stunt coordinating and all that stuff was just like we have to coordinate this fight, but the house is going to be on fire, so everyone has to be in the right place at the right time, and just how unrealistic the fighting is.
Yeah,
I just kind of liked it though.
It's stage fighting. It's that delayed combat stage fighting that they all did.
Stage fighting, and I actually just really liked it. I was like, I want to watch more movies with this kind of like violence.
It's fucking Monty Python fighting, is what it is. Right? It's Life of Brian funny kind of fighting, because you're like, oh, these Nazis are,
it's perfect.
You're totally right. I never even really thought of it through that eye. What's your most prized prop that you've made? What's the one thing that really took some blood, sweat, and tears?
Blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, okay, well, I don't know. I'll just tell the story about this one. It's arguably not something that I made, because it's something that I just facilitated.
Sure.
And by facilitate, it's like I took the director's idea and made it happen with the help of a lot of different people. But I think it was probably, there's a sequence in the pilot episode of Tales from the Loop. At the beginning of this episode, the little girl puts on a record and is dancing, and then the power goes off in the house because her mom's doing a science experiment.
Yeah.
And I think this is like right at the beginning of the show, like kind of premise of the whole show.
Like something goes on in the town. I know. Yeah, you're right. I know what you're talking about.
I think it's like in the basement of the house.
Yeah,
or like
it
the
is.
main floor of the house. She's doing a science experiment and vanishes, and the whole house disappears, whatever. But this record player. So this is just kind of like an example. This is not like the most prized prop in my life, but I'll just tell you the story anyway. This record player, he wanted it to be like a 45 little, like, those little records with the big slot things. Yeah. And it's supposed to play this record, but the only record players we could find were had like the big long post, because the idea from them is that you're supposed to stack like a bunch of 45s on them, and they just play the one side. So it plays one song, and then another record drops, and then it starts playing the next record.
Like before the jukebox.
Yeah, before the jukebox. So it just keeps playing these little 45s. He liked the look of this record player, but we didn't need it to play multiple records, and he didn't like the big long post that is holding all these records. He didn't like that. He's like, and with talking with him, he was just like, he didn't like the color of it. He didn't like so many things of it. He's like, but that's it. So like we were forced to use it. It was like, that's the one he wants, but it has to be all these other things. And so I had to take it to like I just found like a mechanical engineer guy who worked on amps, some guy that I knew kind of from the music world, and Don Voth, and took it to him, and I was like, can you get this thing to like basically like shorten this post off? And he was like, sure. But then opening it up, he was like, the post was filled with like all the mechanics of the record player. Like it was like integral to how the record player works, because it
Can't
also
cut
like,
here.
yeah. So they had to like almost rebuild this record player like from scratch, and we had to get it painted for an auto body shop. Anyway, all this stuff, and it just took forever and ever and ever. And like this is like 15-hour days in prep, like not even shooting yet.
Wow.
Like super long days getting like coordinating and convincing people. Like a lot of my work is just like convincing people who don't work in film to help me, with a project like that has to be done right away, and
There it is. Brass tacks.
but we got it to get, yeah, exactly. And we got it done. And it worked on film, but like it's not even a really good story. It was like just the amount of effort that went into it was, and money. I mean, the thing probably cost like, that, and that's just the one that got picked. There was like another like 10 other record players that we had to buy and paint and it was probably like $20,000 in record players just for this one scene.
There you have it, listener. It costs that much to make something look that great. Like
it does not. It should not. But I don't think that was a good use of money.
No, I get it. But it's like you can argue both sides of that, I guess. No, I get like, yeah, that if that's it, man. Like that's it's not so, I would imagine it's not always about the actual like make this thing, build it, fit it, cut it, whatever. It's about facilitating as much as it's about inventing, creating. And
it really, for me, my position on it is really about facilitating. So like that's where I do best. Like also, I guess I have another one that I'm proud of is on Nobody. I'm not sure if I have time for one more story.
You have as much time as you want.
On Nobody, the director and the DOP, they'd asked for like basically guns that could be used in close combat. Like what they wanted to avoid was, obviously we used real guns like for flame effects and stuff like that in the outdoors. Like typically you'd only use like blanks and stuff when you're in a very safe environment where you can shoot them and it's not in danger of hurting anyone. But they wanted guns that they could use in like indoors and in close contact, but that would have the effect of, the problem with doing CGI muzzle flash is that it doesn't actually light up the room, because the room isn't being lit up.
Yeah.
There's no actual light there. It's just pretend after the fact. So they asked me, and I think it's something that like gets asked a lot of like props people, is to like, can you invent, something that actually like lights up out of the end of the gun to light up the room? It's a DOP thing because they want the room to light up.
Yeah, they need the light to get the shot, and the only way to get the light is to shoot a blank.
Yes, often it's only to shoot a blank, or you basically have like exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Or it's a lighting effect. So you have lights set up that mimic the light.
This is interesting because I mean we all know what happened with Helena and Rust and all that stuff. And I like, we talked about it on the show. I talked to another props guy, Dean Goodine, about that stuff too. And I just asked him, like, it was that week. I just asked him, I was kind of like, what is it? How is it supposed to happen? Let's not talk about rumor and conjecture. I was just curious about it.
Right.
So it's just interesting because it's still very relevant. It's horribly sad, but it's a good lesson for people to understand what is and what isn't, like how this all works, basically.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, in most scenarios, like if a gun is going to be firing, there's not supposed to be anyone in front of it in any, at by any stretch, and most of the time there's not a gun firing. It's like a lighting effect, or there's a muzzle flash and on all those things. On Nobody, obviously we had a lot of
Muzzle
actual
flash.
guns firing. We had a lot of guns firing. We had a lot of muzzle flash, but that was, it was a humongous deal. That was my first Props Master gig, and it was a humongous undertaking. I was lucky and fortunate enough to have basically my mentor as a Props Master, Mark Strachan, also help me. And I hired him basically to be my firearms kind of like coordinator. So he ran all of the firearms departmental kind of a coordination and just had like a mind dedicated to that stuff, so that I didn't have to deal with that stuff. Because in addition to the firearms, that movie was also, like I said earlier, was like the guy from Home Alone, had grown up. So there was a lot of other gags, like there was a lot of other stuff going on.
I can't imagine what it's like building gags, like building booby traps.
Yeah, it was like full on building booby traps,
that Christopher Lloyd and the RZA and Bob Odenkirk all use. Like it's just the most unlikely throuple you could ever see.
Oh man, Christopher Lloyd had. Oh man, I forgot the one other story I was going to tell you.
Yes,
we
got time.
I forgot what it was. I don't even know where I was going with it. But
you were talking about another piece of your work that you loved that was in Nobody, and it revolved around a gun sequence.
Oh yeah,
Mark Strachan.
It was again. This is more of a facilitation, but the director and DOP really wanted flashing guns for close combat, and we had a small assault rifle gun with silencers. Thankfully, we convinced everyone to basically have this sequence where these bad guys come into the house. It's when they come into Hutch's house. He's locked his whole family downstairs.
Yeah, he's made it's when he kind of starts to rebirth and find himself.
Yeah,
again.
He's just made a lasagna, and because don't forget, I'm also responsible for the lasagna.
But that's awesome because it's so not part. Like
don't forget about that part.
Best lasagna on screen.
So he's just made a lasagna, and they're like sitting down having wine and lasagna, and then he notices the cars pull up. Anyway, so in that sequence, there's like close combat, and they're like firing these weapons. And I had developed with our props builder Ray. Why can't I remember his last name? Ray Peterson. Ray Peterson. Excellent, like top-notch props builder in town here. And with him and his work, like we developed essentially like a rig on his gun, on these guns that we'd had, where he built like into the silencers of the guns that went onto the ends, slots that came out so that you couldn't see, but there was like basically hollowed slots out of the sides of the silencer with a little light bead right at the end of the muzzle on the inside of the silencer. And then he wired through the guns so that when you pulled the trigger, it would set off the light, and then you could control how the light would work, like how fast it would go and how fast it would go in between going. So you could go like, da, 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 da. And so every time the guys pulled the trigger, the lights would go off. And it was basically like pulling the trigger, but with no light, with no smoke, no anything. And it would light up the room. So they were all in that movie, and you're seeing that in the movie, is these guys like doing all this stuff. And I remember standing up by the monitors, and like, I'm not like, I'm not like a boasting kind of guy or a
Humble brag, I get it. Yeah,
guy on set. Like, I'm definitely not bragging. But I just remember being at the monitors, at the producers' monitors, and David Leitch, who was one of the producers of Nobody, talking with the other producer, being like, man, I think he was talking about like Deadpool 2 or something he was on. He had just directed like Hobbs and Shaw or something like that. and he was like, fuck, man, like, you know how many times I've asked for flashing guns for like close combat, movies, and this fucking guy gets it. Like, he was like jealous that it was on this movie. And I was just like, holy shit, like, I've impressed that guy. Like, that must be pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's
yeah, exactly.
Well, and like, I mean, that kind of thinking is what, I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now, right? It's a good conversation to have. I mean, but like, that's awesome that like you just made it. You made it. Like, you facilitated it. Ray makes it, and he's sitting there and he's like, yeah. Why didn't we have this on Hobbs and Shaw? Like,
yeah, why didn't we have this on Hobbs and Shaw, for Christ's sakes? And I'm like, holy crap.
Next time.
Yeah,
That's how next time happens, right?
Well, and then, yeah, I mean, like, not even, like, just this past summer, I got a call from the DOP, who was like working on some show in LA on something, and was like trying to get me and the props master from that show involved so that we could
do more
get those guns work. He was basically like, I knew what was going on. The conversation, what was going on, was the props master there was saying it can't be done, and he was going, yeah, it happened in Winnipeg. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I've seen it, actually. I got tape. If you want to, I'll call the guy. We'll show you.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask you the one last question we ask everybody who works in Manitoba in film, like, and you've repeated it a few times, but we'll just summarize here before I let you go. Like, it is a island in the middle of nowhere. There's no direct flights here. It's cold as fuck, but there is a thing about Manitoba film, and the reason why everything that gets made in Manitoba looks so great. What do you love about Manitoba and working here?
Well, I mean, I'd say first and foremost, it's definitely my like connection to my family and my wife, and what I haven't mentioned also is like my sisters both also work in the film industry. So one of my sisters is a costume designer, works in the costume department. My other sister's an actress, and yeah, so like, it's just like all my friends, a lot of my friends work in the industry. So I think it's first and foremost, it's just that it's my home.
Yeah.
And so I feel at home here, and I have a shorthand with all of the, all the other people that I work with in this industry here. So whether it be the lighting or costumes or special effects and all that stuff, like, there's just a real, I feel like I'm a part of the industry here.
Yeah.
As like a local, like with everyone else,
Yeah.
So I think that's probably first and foremost. And then secondly, it's like, it's cheap to live here, and
yeah, we like it that
working
way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cheap to live here, and filmmaking is like a, like the work, it's like a lot of hours, obviously, and, a lot of time away from home, but, you can make a pretty good living at it. And, the drives aren't crazy. Like, even if you're working in Selkirk, it's not like the same thing as having to live in Toronto and drive to Hamilton or something every day.
No,
so
commute. It's easy. Yeah.
It's like, it's a small and workable city. And also here, it's like, I have really good relationships with all the vendors, which is a really integral thing for my job, is like having, the people that I know who collect watches, on speed dial, and be able to like talk to those people and have them help me find the thing that I need to find. If I'm working on a show, I can just be like, there's all the people that are working on the show on the, who are like have contracts. And then there's all the other vendors who are also working on the show.
Yeah.
But they're just not, they're just getting paid another way somehow, like it's, but having good kind of like connections and at this point, like 10 years of experience with like all these different vendors, and having, grown up and worked with those people, it feels good to just be in that world with them. So
yeah, man, if it feels like home, it's home. Don't fuck with that.
Yeah, it feels like home. Basically it. Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for letting me pick your brain on props and giving everybody who listens here like a behind the scenes glimpse into your world and how it works. You're fun to talk film with, man. This was great.
Well, I hope so.
Oh, whatever.
It's going to be aired for other people.
Yeah. No, trust me, they listen to you. That's why I shut up as much as I possibly can. But I'll say what I got to say, and then just hang around for a second before I let you go. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. There's our time with Aaron. Maybe he'll come back and we can nerd out with him again. We'll bug him about that off air so it's not held in infamy. But if this is your first time and you're like, hey, I like the Reel Debaters and I want to know more, just listen to the end credit trailer of what's about to happen. So the music will play, and then there will be a funny line from a movie, and then there will be the part I'm talking about. Just hang around, listen to that for a minute. It's all the podcast stuff that we try to like not talk about during the show, so you have the choice to listen to it. Shameless plugs, where to listen, how to follow, how to learn more about Aaron and what he does and all that shit. So that's there. This has been my guest, Aaron Johnston, and thank you so much again, dude. I've been Michael Petrow. Watch all the movies, kids. We're gonna go. Bye now. Say bye, Aaron.
Bye now.
To you fair Spanish ladies.
And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, another Reel Debaters production is in the can. Thank you so much for listening. If this is your first, second, third, fifth, 20th time, thank you so much. But thank you to the first timers, the ones here who pressed play for the first time and took a gamble on us. If you like what you heard today, the easiest thing to support the show is just to subscribe. Hit the like button, the follow button, whatever's in your podcast player. Make it so that we're always there every Wednesday for you, okay? That would be huge. If you want to stay in touch with us, if you want to follow us, there's a couple ways to do that. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. We're slowly migrating to YouTube by putting all of the things we've ever put on video onto that site. There's some surprises coming this year that happened a while ago, but I felt needed to be shared because they're part of the Debaterverse. So the YouTube page is coming. But if you want to follow us, it's at Reel Debaters Pod on Twitter and Instagram. It's the Reel Debaters Podcast on TikTok. All of the links, all of the one-click away things are in the show notes that you've just listened to. So if you want to follow us there, that would be great too, because then you get to stay in the know of all the things that we do and what we're going to try to do this year and what we've done in the past, so on and so forth. So that's how you stay in touch with us. If you want to contact us, it's thereeldebaters@gmail.com. All the spelling for all these things is REEL to keep with the title of the show. So you can send an email to us there, request an episode, want to call out one of us for being a goofball. There's places to do that as well too. Like the Reel Debaters website. You can email us, or you can go straight to the website, rate us in Podchaser, reeldebaters.ca. And if you really, really liked what you heard, and you want to support the show in some fashion that requires you spending money, well, we got a couple ways for you to do that as well too. You can buy our merch at the Prop Shop. It's a store through Threadless, and it's online, and you can order stuff. We've got tons of stuff. We've got our Mass Debater wear there. It's our signature, original, and only line. It's our logo on everything. So you can support us that way. Go to the merch tab in the show notes, or if you just got $1 and you're like, hey, I want to give you $1 and donate it to your cause, there is a tab in the show notes as well too that says donate to the Debaterverse, I think. And if you click on that, it takes you to a donation page where you can donate like $1, $3, and $5, and you'll get something for your $1, $3, or $5. Any more than that's just ludicrous. Luda. So, that's just kind of what I wanted to tell you. That what I said at the end of the show. This is what you should listen to, because this is all about who we are, and now that we've gotten to where we are, we want to interact with you guys more. So these are the ways to do so. This is the way to stay in touch with us. Thank you to everybody again who's listened to the show. Again, you pressed play, you took a chance. That's cool. So, without further ado, this is where I said I would talk more. So, it's eggs on your face. No, I got nothing else for you. So, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. And watch all them fucking movies. Bye-bye.